Okay, so here we are. I'm Lisa Page, my partner, my beloved in life, Mo Latin, and we are here with the very phenomenal Andrew Harvey, who we've hosted for some events here in Adelaide over the last couple of days. And we've been having conversations around relationship and sacred intimacy, and we thought that wouldn't
because
it be...
of the work you do, this is very important work that you and Mo are doing. And I'm doing this because I truly want to put my 2 cents behind your work. Mm. So what really inspired this work? You told me that amazing story about going to Tony Robbins' a great event of Tony Robbins and a realization you had there.
Sure. So, well, I think both of us have came from different paths of relationship. I mean, Mo will tell his story. He came from a certain path of experiences, as did I, and then we came together, and we happened to come together at a time where we both had a very deep clarity around how we wanted to live relationship. I remember standing in my hallway reading Dear Lover by David Data, who I was doing some study with, and I remember thinking, I do not want to be in a relationship until it's an embodiment of this real love, this divine love, this sacredness, this freedom.
Yes.
And no sooner had I actually made that declaration than
Mo turned up. Ta-da!
Yeah. And Mo, I think we both had dropped into that clarity within ourselves, and so then began exploring that. The incident that you're speaking about was a few years later, actually, probably about 3 years later.
Yes, 2011, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. And
we were in a room at that event, and he asked, who's, hands up if you're trying to escape a relationship, because you're really unhappy. Hands up if you're, in a relationship and unhappy. And then there was hands up if you're in a relationship where there's love, but not the depth of intimacy and connection and passion that you really, really yearn for. And I remember looking around the room, and the majority of the room had their hands up. And then he asked, so hands up if you feel that you have that intimacy, that depth of connection, that love, that passion, that you're really living that in your relationship, that it's totally alive for you. And you know what? Out of about 3,000 people?
No, about 2,000 I think it was in that event. Yeah.
So out of 2,000 people, there were only about 5 of us who stood up, and Mo and I were 2 of those.
That's wonderful.
And I remember...
It's so sad, isn't it?
I remember feeling heartbroken and also excited, because the people who didn't feel they had that depth of connection and intimacy and passion, they did have love. Yes. They did love each other.
Yes.
And I'm sure they started with that passion.
Yes.
But over time, they'd lost it. And so that, to me, was an affirmation that was really at the beginning of doing that work. And I looked around and thought, wow, that's really an affirmation of why the work is so needed.
And the work is really to help people who are serious about their relationship deepen immeasurably their experience of the relationship and their gifts and their depth in the relationship, isn't it?
Absolutely.
No,
really
so
about,
what is it for you that you're doing in this?
This is really about helping committed couples establish deeper connection, trust, intimacy. And all of the couples that we worked with over the past few years have had very deep love for each other. Some of them have had a great deal of trouble in their relationships. Some of them have been right at the edge
of giving up.
Of can we really do this anymore? And a lot of their troubles, if you like, came from not actually being fully present with each other. Not being fully present to themselves, being present to each other, being present to what is in the moment of their relationship. So right now I actually want to define one of the key points that we work with, which is we're talking about relationship, but what we actually talk about a great deal is relating.
Yes,
There's a great
I
difference.
love the distinction. What does it mean for you?
So relationship is, to me, is static. It's a noun.
Right.
It's something that's defined. We have a relationship of a certain kind. Relating is the ongoing evolution of moment by moment relating to whatever is there in the moment.
Right.
And that is such a big distinction and so important to actually be in the now. Not be in, you didn't do this thing 5 minutes ago or 5 years ago.
Or I'm afraid this might happen
Yeah.
next year, or just everything that prevents us.
I mean, all of that
From
may
being
still
present.
be, all of that may still be true and real in your relationship. But that's the thing. If you're defining a relationship from those points of reference, you're actually taking away from what is right now in this moment. You're actually taking away from the aliveness, the juiciness, also the pain. Because if you're actually really relating to what is here in this moment, sometimes it's really uncomfortable.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's incredibly heartbreaking sometimes.
Yes.
And I think that's really why a lot of relationships get into trouble, because they avoid what is challenging and what is uncomfortable.
And the relationship becomes in a way an excuse for not relating.
Yes.
You set it up in such a
Yes.
way that
Yeah.
it seems to have an identity of its own, which
Yes.
prevents both people from actually seeing who's in front of them in the moment that they are with them.
And the people can quite often, each side, each part of the couple can quite often get lost in their definition of who they are in a relationship, or who they feel they ought to be in a relationship, instead of actually being fully themselves and bringing themselves to the relationship
Yes.
from a clean and clear place.
Yes.
So a lot of the work that we do is actually about self-clearing, self-clarity, showing up without your baggage, without your drama, without the day's weight and crap that you've had to deal with throughout the day, and actually doing what you can to deal with that by yourself. Take responsibility for your own stuff.
Yes.
So that when you show up with your partner, you're actually clear.
Yes.
And you can then operate without the distraction.
And without projecting onto your partner what you're
Yeah.
not facing in yourself and
Yeah.
not dealing with in
Exactly.
yourself.
Yeah.
As I understand it, you work with the man in the relationship and you work with the woman in the relationship. It would be wonderful to... And then you work together.
And then when we do the couple session, it's the four of us.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. We love it.
It's incredibly
I mean,
powerful.
it's so powerful because it means that we get to explore what's going on, and they get clarity from both the feminine and the masculine side.
Yes.
So, for example, let's say she doesn't feel safe to express how she really feels, and it's something simple, like it's because he has the masculine tendency to, rather than just holding space and remaining grounded, he instantly jumps in with a solution,
Yeah,
which is the
fix it,
masculine
fix
need
it,
to
fix
fix it,
it,
fix
yeah.
it, fix it, so then we can all be free of it because he wants her to be happy
Yes.
and he wants to be free of it. And yet what he says, or how he holds his body, or his tone, or how he's breathing, I mean, all of these sometimes not so subtle nuances and sometimes very subtle nuances have a profound impact on her ability to feel safe to really open and express how she truly feels from the depth of her being. And so sometimes a simple refinement like, okay, dude, when you say that with that tone, the feeling that arises in me as a woman is da-da-da-da, is either...
That's what you say to
Yeah,
him, yes.
and there's something very beautiful about getting reflection. You know, now if she had said that, he of course would have had all his own defences and
Right.
projection and
Right.
feeling blamed and I'm not getting it right, or whatever their thing
Whatever
is.
dance is
Because
going on,
they've
yeah.
been training each other to be with each other
Yes.
for years in
Yes.
that way, in these intricate patterns of closure rather than openness, which is normally what brings them to us.
Mm-hmm.
So just getting a beautiful refinement from that, from another feminine being who has no agenda, and you can feel the woman go, because that's what she's always wanted to say,
That's
but
so
hasn't been able to articulate. And quite often, Mo, we're able to give that refinement also
What
to the
do you
woman.
find yourself, Mo, working with most in men? What are the things that you notice men being stuck in most?
Men often have great difficulty in being fully present to whatever she is feeling, and to actually be in that without withdrawing, without collapsing, without wanting to run away, without fighting back. So, and actually allowing her to express. So, it's actually very challenging. It's actually very, very challenging. And if I tell you a little bit of my background, my parents were very good at arguing. Okay.
Yes, you tell me they argued all the time, and that you used to lie in bed absolutely terrified that they were going to slam the doors and scream all night. Right?
Yeah,
it was scary.
It was scary, and it's one of the things that really drove me to understand relationships. And at the time, I actually thought my dad was just literally running away from my mum. I mean, he couldn't handle it. He did not know how to handle such an expressive. My mum, although she is part English, is also part Mediterranean. Grew up a lot of her time in the south of Spain and Gibraltar. So you have that very Mediterranean, expressive, fiery, passionate expression. And if you combine that with years of frustration, that just things not going how she may have wanted them to go. I mean, this is so common in so many relationships, that there are expectations that are not met. And this compounds over years, and if you when that comes out as the full force of feminine frustration and expression, not in the English way, which is very subdued, but in the Mediterranean,
plate smashing kind of
we never quite got to plate smashing, but it's that kind of intensity,
energy.
It's very hard for a man, for most men, to be able to stand in that and handle that and actually be with their woman fully. And what's really fascinating about this is that when you learn to be able to be with her fully in this, there comes an opening.
Yes.
There comes an opening where she feels fully felt and fully heard and fully accepted and allowed to be who she is. And that is wonderful for both sides. It's really powerful for both sides, because he gets to feel his own groundedness and his ability to stay with her. It takes practice. It's really challenging, and it takes practice. And there are many ways that we work with couples to allow this and to empower him to be able to be with her in that, and to also encourage and empower her to trust that she can express herself to him. Right. Because, of course, she has a fear that if she really lets go, he's going to just disappear. He's going to go down the pub, he's going to go fishing, he's going to go completely insane and start firing stuff back at her, and it just ends up butting heads.
Right. And remember, women are always receiving the message, you're too much.
Right.
When we are fully expressed, fully alive, you're too much. Right. So there's conditioning on both sides. And the other beautiful thing, which is so phenomenal to see, is as these men that we've worked with, and Mo has worked one-on-one with, is as they really begin to grow these roots of consciousness and awareness and self-trust and self-knowing, and hold that space and be with what is, and still remain in their power and feel free in that, and able to love in that. They do the same in the world, because of course their woman is only an embodiment of the
life.
big she, which is life.
Right.
So then their capacity in life, when they're thrown chaos, which is what feminine emotion feels like to the masculine, their capacity to deal with that, you really see their capacity deepens, and it becomes more and more in their body. Because like Mo said, it's something that most men are just not trained to
Right.
do. And
In fact, they're
women,
trained to do the opposite. They're trained to suppress it
Yes.
in themselves and
Yeah.
in women and in life, because this is a very over-masculinized culture, isn't it? In which men are the victims
yes.
of that.
Well, women are the victims too,
over-masculinization.
because one of the other things we deal with so often is where the woman is actually in charge of the relationship. The woman is the masculine structure, the direction, the guidance, where she actually wants to surrender and relax.
Yes.
And open.
But she feels she has to do everything for the man who's not able, in a way, to do it.
He doesn't feel. I mean, it's quite a complex equation, but essentially, because we live in such a masculinized world, both men and women tend to be in their masculine at work,
right?
Unless they're doing something in the caring professions, in massage, in
Or
something
art
that's feminine,
or
creativity, art. So, at the end of the day, when they both come home, having been in their masculine all day, they both want to relax into their feminine. But of course, what she wants is a man who's going to create that, during sexual intimacy, of course, to create that polarity when you actually get together for sexual intimacy. But beyond that, she still wants a man to direct the relationship. She wants someone to hold the masculine space to direct the relationship.
Yes.
Now, if he comes home at the end of the day and he's been giving his all day and he just wants to relax too, he doesn't really want to have to do that. Now, fair enough, he wants to relax, he wants to have some time out, he needs some time for himself to regenerate. And
his masculine power.
But in doing that, sometimes he may just need to collapse in front of the TV, have a beer, go for a walk, do whatever he needs to do to actually just
meditate,
let go of the day, and actually come back into his center. But what tends to happen is that the women get frustrated that the man is not holding that structure, and therefore someone needs to do it. So she steps into the place of doing that.
And this creates tremendous confusion and depression on all sides, doesn't
Over
it?
days and weeks and months, this becomes a way of being.
Yes.
And the masculine and feminine poles actually kind of switch. You know, we always start very attractive with lots of sexual energy and magnetism and, you know, lots of passion at the beginning of relationships, and it kind of peters out over time as the poles kind of switch. But a lot of the work that we do is actually helping people reconnect with their core masculine or feminine being.
That's wonderful. So that you're not really, I mean, so much of the work that I've heard of has denatured men in a way, feminized men. And what I love about your work is that it actually brings out the depths of the sacred masculine in the male and the depths of the sacred feminine in the female, and then helps both to relate to each other with much greater intimacy and passion, so that this fullness that
and
people glimpse in the
aliveness.
beginning of a relationship can actually be sustained through a long relationship.
Absolutely.
And this is the thing, I mean, essentially, what most profoundly impacts a moment of relating is how we're being.
Right.
And all these habits we have of not being who we really are as a unique expression of the sacred feminine, as a unique expression of the sacred masculine. And when you really commit to actually being each other's champion and
best
seeing,
friend, and truly wanting the other to be at their most powerful.
And trusting that that will evolve.
Yes.
Because we hook into, we don't want our partner, secretly we don't want our partner to change because they suit us just as they are. But when we truly free each other to allow that ever-evolving nature within each other, then the moment-by-moment relating only gets deeper and deeper and wider, and we bring more and more of who we are authentically and originally, rather than what the sacred masculine might look like for another
or
guy,
what the society
or the
is saying
feminine,
your role should be. It could be
absolutely, exactly,
Right.
exactly. So this piece around how you're being is really fundamental, and that every tension you have in your body, you're always rippling out to the other person. Every aliveness, every
withdrawal, even if
every
you think
withdrawal, every
disguising
freedom,
it is actually permeating.
That's
Yes,
right, always,
absolutely.
always. And so that's why we do the work. That's why I work with the woman and man, and Mo works with the men. Sometimes we swap because we feel that she would really be served by a session with Mo and vice versa, me with the man. But it's because women need to be with women.
Yes,
you know,
and men with
and
men.
Men need to be with men. And we all have masculine and feminine within us. And it's really just giving yourself as a couple the gift of being with the feminine in other women because it brings it alive in you. Yes. And men being with other men because it brings it alive in you. So no matter what else is going on, you bring your unique gifts. And let's face it, if you're in an intimate relationship, you are in an intimate relationship because of the unique gifts you bring in intimacy. If you're in a sexual relationship, you're in it because you have these, your partner loves you for what you bring, not just to the relationship as a whole, but to the intimacy and the sexual intimacy. Because you can, you can be loved by a friend, you can be loved by a pet, and they're all beautiful and sacred aspects of love. The aspect of intimate relationship is very specific. It's different to that. And that's the other beautiful thing about the work is actually women and men
opening up to what they truly want sexually.
That's right.
And what they want,
and what they yearn to give, and what they yearn to receive, and really exploring that in a way that brings them closer together and brings even greater depth. Because there's...
And passion. That's the key, isn't it? Because without intimacy and without this kind of radical honesty and this exploration, there can't be passion. And there can't be passion that lasts.
Because there's too much in the way. What is it that you always say? Anything...
Whatever's unsaid is in the way.
Whatever's unsaid congeals over time.
Whatever is unrevealed is in the way. And I love that because we need to do our own work in order to allow ourselves to be revealed. And sometimes we need to untangle some knots of tension.
Always, I think.
You know, that are knotting us up, that prevent us from even revealing what we've stuffed down in the shadow to ourselves, and then creating this beautiful, safe, trusting, sacred, yearning, alive, passionate space for that radical honesty, for this is the juice and truth of who I am, and I feel safe to give it to you, and I feel loved however I give it, and there's this beautiful trust that will always evolve and change, and that's okay.
And that you're strong enough to let it evolve and change, and to actually celebrate that. What I love about what you're doing too is that it's not just so much of couples work that I've been connected with is really just about the couple. It's about, it seems to me, helping two people to become foci of real work in the world. Because when two people come together in the kind of radical, alive passion you're talking about, they can fuel energy to each other to do the work in the world that they're really called to. Because then you can come home and be remade in this fire so that you can go out from it energized and passionate and confident that you're loved.
Well, put it this way, if you're in survival mode in any aspect of your life, you can only focus on yourself. And it's the same in relationship. If you're just in survival mode because at any point there's going to be another argument, or at any point, you know, what he said yesterday is going to come volcanically out of you, or you're worried about the future, there's this survival mode, then how can you possibly give your gifts to anyone, right?
And how can you serve the world if you're just in that survival anxiety all the time?
And yet once you really, really clear those knots of tension away within yourself, and you begin to reveal the juice and truth of who you are, which allows those moments of relating, the juice and the truth of that relating to just spill over. And then the people around you, if you have children, your family, your friends, your community, your work colleagues, they begin to feel this overflow of freedom and love that you're embodying within yourself and within your relationship, and then out into the world through your work, giving your gifts to what, as you say in sacred activism, what is it that breaks your heart?
Right.
And then taking embodied action.
But it's hard to take embodied action if you aren't supported by living, vibrant relationships with really great friendships and great passionate coupledoms. You know, it's hard for people. That's why most people are not really reacting to the world crisis, not doing anything, because
they're in survival mode.
In survival mode, and they don't feel loved, and they don't feel cherished, and they don't feel adored, and they don't feel the energy of a living relationship supporting them. They feel lonely and battered and shattered and paralyzed and in a coma, and that's why so little is really happening. So this healing of the couple and bringing of the couple into this evolutionary new truth, which is what you're about in your work, is actually central to the healing of the planet and the bringing into the planet of healed, healthy, sexually, emotionally, spiritually alive beings who are filled with compassion and passion to do something and are fueled by love to do it. That's so thrilling to me. Yeah. And I congratulate you and wish you so much luck in this beautiful work you're doing.
Thank you.
It's been lovely sharing this time with you and learning from you and learning from the way in which you both are together, and seeing how you live your love together inspires me very, very much. And this work that you do, I just wish it every happiness and every success. And know that I'm there for you. And may many sacred activists be forged by your work, or given the power from their personal relationships to have the relationship with the world that we all so deeply need now. And to enact that relationship fed by happy, vibrant love.
Yay.
Thank you.
My pleasure.